I'll be speaking to Fabio Bosco, who is a retired subway worker in Brazil and a former union official, and is a member of the Unified Socialist Workers' Party. And I believe he's in Sao Paulo. Is that right?
That's right, Stanley. I'm in São
Okay.
Paulo.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Now, Sao Paulo is far from the Brazilian capital of Brasilia, where all the rioting, let's say, took place. Did the coup plotters also do things in Sao Paulo?
Yes, in the same day, they carried out a blockage in one important avenue of São Paulo. But, it was Sunday. And now in Brazil, it's our summer holidays. So the city is empty. So it did not bring much trouble, let's say. But yes, they did something here. It was not a big group, it was a small group, but they blocked one avenue in São Paulo.
Okay. I read that some forces on social media were calling for more coup actions today. Are there signs of that effort?
Yes, they called new kind of protests. But, Stanley, what happened is that what happened on Sunday, the riots in Brasilia, when they stormed the three buildings that were the Supreme Court, the Presidential Palace, and the Parliament all together, what happened? The majority of the people in Brazil, the opinion polls show that 75% of the Brazilians opposed these riots, you see? So it was a kind of setback for them. So they are weaker to carry out any other action at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they are not over, but they are weaker at this moment. And there is something like 1,000 people that were arrested in Brasilia that are still in jail. 600 of them were set free, but 1,000 they are in jail. And so they are more cautious at this moment,
Mm-hmm.
you see. But yes, there was calls in the internet for new demonstrations, but they did not happen up to now. And we are coming to the end of afternoon here in São Paulo, in
Yeah.
Brazil.
So we heard about the attacks on Congress and the presidential palace and all, but I also read that the rioters, the coup people, were going to try to take over oil refineries. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Their plan was on, they were trying to make some kind of blockage or demonstrations in different cities, storming the three buildings in Brasilia, stopping the distribution of gasoline in Brazil. So they have some groups in front of important refineries here. And they did something else, which was they put down 4 towers that are used to bring energy from the dams and distribute them across Brazil. You see, they did it on Sunday, from Sunday to Monday. So their plan was to disrupt energy, gasoline, and occupy the buildings in Brasilia with some demonstrations in other cities. But in the case of the refineries, they were not strong enough to stop the refineries, you see. And on top of that, inside the refineries, there is a very active labor movement that would take them from the entrance of the refinery. So
where are these refineries? What city or what part of the country?
There are some refineries. One of them is Rio de Janeiro. Another one, it's in the city in Greater Rio de Janeiro. It's called Duque de Caxias. There is another one in an industrial city here in São Paulo called São José dos Campos. There is another one in a city near Campinas here in the state of São Paulo. Another one, Belo Horizonte. They had groups in front of these refineries, but they could not really do anything to disrupt the distribution of gasoline.
Okay. Now, the demonstrations and occupations by the right have been going on, I've heard, since election day, since the day Lula was defeating Bolsonaro. What I find strange is we don't hear news about working people having their own demonstrations and marches in support of Lula. What are the organizations of working people doing?
Look, it's important to know that the majority of labor organizations and social movements, they have a leadership that is deeply influenced by Lula, you see? And Lula, his politics is not to mobilize the people, it's to put his cards on the state institution to rule Brazil. So after election, what he was saying is that we must keep calm because we won the election. So let's wait. We will be in power in January 1st, and then we'll be in a better position to rule. Mm-hmm. And this orientation is a very harmful orientation. I will give an example. After the riots in Brasilia on Sunday, the social movements and some labor organizations, youth organizations, and football fans organizations, they called demonstrations for the next day, for Monday. The demonstration here in São Paulo was a beautiful demonstration. There was between 5,000 to 10,000 people. It was a very lively demonstration. People were demanding, they say, no amnesty for Bolsonaro and the far right. You see, people want Bolsonaro and the far right to be punished. There was some carnival song saying, it's time to put Bolsonaro in jail, you see? So it was a very lively, beautiful demonstration. But you see, Stanley, I can tell you that if Lula called the demonstration, we would have 500,000 or maybe 1 million people in the city of São Paulo. Mm-hmm. But his politics is not this one. You see, his politics was to have a meeting with the Supreme Court members, with the leaders of parliament, call the people to stay calm, you see. So this role of Lula, who is the main leader, most influential leader among the working class and labor movement, it will be a hindrance for the working class to take to the streets and to take action to stop the far right.
And depending
it's important to say that Lula made an alliance with the big capitalists, you see, so his government is what he calls a broad front, from the left to the right, almost everyone except Bolsonaro, you see. The politics of this broad front towards Bolsonaro is not to smash the far right. You see, the capitalists are interested in keeping the far right alive, just in case there is a kind of uprising in Brazil and things go out of control, so they have another force to intervene against the working people. Mm-hmm. And on the side, and Lula, what he thinks about. For Lula, the existence of the far right is also interesting to justify this alliance with the capitalists. You understand? Mm-hmm. Because he says, look, the fascists are there. What do you prefer, the fascists or our alliance with these guys that are not good? They are not our real allies, but they are not in favor of the fascists. And so he justified for the activists, for the working class as a whole, that this alliance he's building with important sectors of the Brazilian bourgeoisie, the alliance with the US government, all this is necessary for for the working class to have a voice here in Brazil.
Yeah, a voice. I mean, I some of this reminds me of 1973 and Allende in Chile, and all the things he thought he could do.
Yes, no, definitely. You know that between the election the runoff of the election was in the end of October, okay? October 30th. So from the end of election, when Lula was elected, till now, there was concentrations, not big rallies, okay, but rallies of the far-right groups in front of the military headquarters, asking the military to step in and put Lula out, you see? And look, the minister that Lula appointed for the Minister for Defense, who is responsible for Army, Navy, and Air Force, he tried to compromise, you see, and the generals of the army said, okay, these guys in front of our headquarters are an expression of democracy, you see. But I can tell you, Stanley, if you come to Brazil and we go together, we put a tent in front of a military base here, we will not stay there 2 minutes. A soldier will come there and kick us out. So their politics is some kind of compromise. But there are a lot of people inside the army and inside the police force who share the same ideas of Bolsonaro, that a coup d'etat in Brazil would be something positive, the military back to power would be something positive. So we may have in the future a situation like Chile. You remember, Allende appointed Pinochet to be the leader of the armed forces, and Pinochet was working together with the US government to carry out a coup d'etat. So these politics of compromising are very problematic.
And definitely. We have to inform our viewers who may not know that Brazil did have a military government for quite a while, a brutal government. When was that?
Well, the military carried out a coup d'etat in 1964, and they stayed in power for 21 years, till 1985. 21 years, yes.
Yeah.
And then there was in 1984, there was huge demonstrations in Brazil for the election of the president of Brazil that managed to take the military out of power. So the civilians that were connected to the military started to rule, and elections were held in 1989. You see? And in the history of Brazil, it's important to say that since we have a republic in Brazil, which is the end of the 19th century, the military have been in power many times. And now is the longest period of, let's say, democratic rights that we have ever had in Brazilian history.
So, alternatives. So I read an article a few days ago about, or it came from the Unified Socialist Workers' Party. It called for a national day of struggle, street occupations, and the creation of self-defense organizations. So how has that call been received?
Look, the National Day of Action was held on Monday, you see. The most sensitive issue is the issue of self-defense. But look how is it? On Sunday, if we go to the social media where you can find labor activists, youth activists, black rights movements, women rights movements, you see, this kind of activism that are left-wing, progressive, there was a general feeling, they were very uncomfortable, you see. There was a general feeling that maybe we would have to go to a kind of civil war to stop the far right, because it was not possible to see that the state would stop the far right, you see. So you see, there are some signs that goes in direction of self-defense and independent working class organization. And the result of this feeling was the demonstrations that were held the next day, on Monday, last Monday. But the main one that appeared talking about self-defense on top of the Labor Federation I am part of, CSP com Lutas, were football funds organizations. They were saying that, hey, to take out the far right from the entrance of the military headquarters, just call us. We go there and take all of them out. Because they did so just after the runoff elections in October the 30th. Because the far right were blocking the roads in Brazil, 500 blockages across the country. And in two places, the football fans went there and kick out all the far right. So, Stanley, what I can tell you about the self-defense, there is a discussion going on. And the main hindrance for that is the politics that comes from Lula, which influences all the labor movement, the social movements, which is to trust the state institutions. You see, not to take action independently, not to build self-defense. But we have to see, because the far right, okay, they had a setback on Sunday, it's true, but they are not dead, they are not over, they will come back. And I think this debate about the need of the self-defense will be broader. That's the perspective I'm working on. The Lula administration will face a very difficult moment because the world economy is not going well. Poverty is widespread here in Brazil now. And due to his alliance with the big capitalists, he will carry out reforms against working people. You see, new liberal reforms. And so maybe we'll have this honeymoon period, you see, 3-6 months. But after that, people want jobs, you see, they want food, and they will have to stand up for these basic, you see, demands. And I think the issue of self-defense, of the independent organization of the working class will arise from this need to have proper living conditions, you see.
Very good. Well, I want to thank you for talking with me. I want to mention one website for people who want more information. There's workersvoiceus.org. And Fabio will get us some other sites in English to get more information. And I have one last question. It's freezing here. What's the temperature down in the summer in Brazil?
Well, it's a nice temperature now in São Paulo. In the northeast of Brazil, it's too warm. But here we are more to the south, you see. So it's very nice temperature. It's around 22 degrees Celsius. Mm-hmm. So it's a sunny day today. It's
we'll
good.
Send some of that up here.
Sure.
Thanks for talking.
Thank you for the opportunity, Stanley.